'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the town Brian Godluck was living with his family sound. The lights they were glowing within their abode, a happy electrician with his wife and his brood.
The children were playing with joy and great cheer, excited for Santa and presents this year. When out on the street there arose such a clatter, gunshots ringing out, what could be the matter?
Away Brian ran to see what was amiss, but was met with a tragedy so remiss, for his son had been hit in crossfire, it seemed, and Brian's own voice was lost as he screamed.
The gangs disappeared into the cold winter night, leaving Brian struck mute, a horrific plight. His son lay there lifeless, his eyes vacant and dim. The chance of this Christmas being merry was slim.
Brian's sorrow was heavy, his sadness profound. His family now broken, his happiness drowned. He knew what he must do, a mission so clear, to avenge his son's death and spread holiday fear.
So into the darkness this father did go, to find the gang members through ice and through snow. He would not stop until each one was dead, for the blood they had spilled and the life they had shed.
He swore by the light of the moon up above he would have his revenge for the family he loved. No more joy or cheer, no peace shall you know, for the evil you've done, you gangsters of woe.
The night turned to day, Christmas morning alone, as Brian set out his vengeance to hone. For the spirits of family now guided his way on his personal mission of vengeance that day.
So Brian crept forward, determined and bold, to write the next chapter, this story of old, of justice, sought out on that one Christmas night by a loving father turned vengeance-filled white. The film board gathers. The gang of thugs is here to take on a movie currently in theaters, and this month we went to see Silent Night for you. It's a John Woo thing, and I'm Pete Wright, and I'm here with Justin J.J. Yeager. Hello, J.J. Hi. And Thomas W. Metz III. Tommy?
Hello, grand to be here. Whoops.
Where do you start with a movie like this, right? We chose this movie for reasons to talk about this particular month. Tom, would you remind us and dear listener, why did we choose this movie? It was not the biggest thing.
No, I think the reason that we chose this movie was twofold. One was a little bit self-centric in that I used to work for the director, John Woo, for many years, way back in the day, and I was there when he made his last American film, Ben Affleck's Paycheck. The film that starred when we got Ben Affleck attached, we were over the moon because he was one of the biggest stars in the world. And by the time the movie came out, they didn't even show his face on the poster because he had been so persona non grata through all of the Jennifer Lopez scandals, gambling, all of that kind of stuff. It did not do well. And John took his fortunes to China and has been directing. Before then, though, he has gone down in history as one of the legends of action cinema, that so many of the young new action directors that we have bit off of him, his use of slow motion, his insistence on showing where every single bullet lands. That was just stuff that wasn't being paid attention to in Hollywood. And so this was hopefully going to be a return to form after a long time away.
Tom, you and I saw the movie today. JJ saw it earlier.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, yesterday, in fact. Friday, opening night.
Yeah. Opening night. That's big.
Yes.
And I wonder, JJ, if you want to recount your initial feeling going into this conversation.
Wow. My initial feeling was fear. Fear that even talking about this movie would be potentially something that wasn't valuable to anyone. I think Pete, you did the exact right thing by calling this a John Woo thing, because my opinion about what we watched here was that this is not a movie. This is a thing. This is at its best, it's a lark. Or maybe at its best, it's a music video. Right. And the lark is the contention. It's the vehicle that's used to tell this story, which is, I guess, creatively, there's an interest there. And how are you going to execute on this? That's the lark. And the execution is maybe a music video. But ultimately, at its worst, this is a joke. It is. I don't even want to rate it. It doesn't belong in film. It is something. It's not a movie. It's hilarious. It's ridiculous. There is nothing cohesive about anything in this. So, yes, we're talking about it as a return to, you say form, Tommy, but like, this is not this.
We were hoping it was a return to form.
We were hoping it was a return to form. It's really, it's a thing. It's an indescribable thing that will make you laugh at how ridiculous it is. It's a joke. And so my feeling coming out of the movie was, oh God.
Right.
We don't want to talk about this, because at some point people are going to go, what? Why would anyone, if people watch this thing, they're going to be like, what is that? Anyway, sorry. I feel I'm vehement about it.
Yes, no, clearly. I wish more people were watching the live stream, because to watch the way your face contorts as you talk about it is legendary. Like, it's fantastic.
That's Tom, the return to form.
Tom, is this as much of a rage-filled experience for you?
I was very hopeful for this movie, because when I heard that there was no actual on-screen spoken dialogue, that there are a couple lines, but they're all delivered off-screen by radio announcers. It's mostly, that's sort of the gimmick. What JJ was talking about, saying the lark, is it Silent Night? It is a dialogue-free movie. And I was hoping that would really help Mr. Woo out with some of his, let's say, not things he's not as strong with, which can be melodrama, which can be schmaltz, which can be that type of thing. And instead, it really let him lean in too much to those things. It did the opposite of what I was hoping for, and instead was part slog, part training how-to video. And then I think maybe he lost his son. I don't know. The film forgot to remind me every minute. And so unfortunately it left him to negative devices that sometimes he has used in the past. And so I was very disappointed by that. And this is also in a situation of Thunder Road mining the exact same thing over and over again to lesser and lesser ability, meaning the top of their game was John Wick, then they did Nobody, and now they have this. They're just cannibalizing their own sort of revenge porn ideas to lesser and lesser effect.
I think that is a absolutely fair statement. The thing that I went into, the thing that gave me hope going into this movie was not even necessarily the John Woo-ness of it, because, we recently did the Mission Impossible thing. So I still have Mission Impossible 2 in my palette a little bit. I went in because of the no dialogue thing. I think that is a legitimate swing in an action movie like this. And I am provoked. I am curious. I want to see this be successful, because if they can keep my attention without any dialogue and still tell the story in a way that feels like a legitimate, authentic story, then isn't that the stuff of legend, right? Isn't that the stuff that I'm always complaining about, is exposition dump? There's no exposition dump in this movie because nobody's saying a word. And yet somehow I feel like the whole movie ended up being a silent exposition dump film. And so I am perplexed by it. I don't think I'm as vehement as you are, JJ, but I'm definitely on camp low end of the thing. And I'll tell you when it really turned for me. Well, it was the surgery porn. So it's like 10 minutes into the movie when they just can't stop that gauze shot on his throat.
That was the least effective sucker.
Yes.
Like when they're like,
you said the little vacuum thing. What did they do? It's not doing. It's broken.
It was shooting blood out onto his neck.
That's what it was doing. It's like it was sucking and then repumping it back from the other side.
You have it on reverse. Oh no,
terrible. So that kind of stuff, I didn't care for. We need to talk about the whole mechanic of not being able to speak in a bit. But the piece that got me is I can't watch this without thinking that they wanted to make Old Boy, and they made the least effective knockoff of Old Boy that I can imagine. The action was slower, the gun work was slower, the gang members were just not as agile and fast, and they relied on old tropes. So this is my problem with this movie, and this is what makes me frustrated by it, that you go in thinking you're getting a John Woo movie where John Woo is going to elevate action, and instead we got a John Woo shaped movie where he delivered exactly what we've already seen before and done with more slow motion. Like there was nothing to lift this out of trope, and I feel like that's the central letdown. The fact that you did it without any dialogue is not an excuse for John Woo movie having boring visuals.
One of the things that it turns out I respect it more than I enjoy it. I kind of dug the idea of, this is the first that I know of Thunder Road movie where the guy isn't a secret action genius already. That we're not awakening a sleeping giant. Nobody, Bob Odenkirk used to have a past. Obviously, John Wick, everyone knows him as the Baba Yaga. This guy actually has to train, and he really sucks at everything for a long time. I mean, including stopping that balls from hitting each other on his desk.
They just go for months.
But why I say I respect it more than not is I use the word slog. It's kind of a boring movie, a lot of it. And if you're going to do that as realistically, more or less, as they did, and show someone not being a good shot, slowly becoming a good shot, no pull-ups, 5 pull-ups, all the pull-ups, dumbbells falling from the sky, you have to promise a action phenomenon at the end. And especially when it's all going to take place in one situation, in one area, you are promising me the movie The Raid. You're promising me a Die Hard, this kind of a thing. And when we finally got there, I was so let down by pretty much every action sequence. There's one virtuoso meant to be sequence, which is the stairway sequence. And we can talk about the DP, whatever it is. I thought it was terribly shot. I never really knew where I was. The pacing was so weird. It was all waiting for that 15-20 minutes. And that 15-20 minutes was such a drag. I was so disappointed.
Well, and you talk about respecting it, and I get why, from a objective point of view, you may want to respect the fact that they tried to tell a story about an arc, about this character growing into his revenge journey. But because it was executed so poorly, and because there is no logical sense in anything that happens in this movie, it really turns out to be obligatory, right? I mean, like, instead of it being something that I can respect, it looks like a box that they wanted to check out. Be like, okay, let's show the pull-up shot. Let's show the alcoholic sequence. Let's show. I mean, nothing is connected to story in this. We read a nice poem of what is a way to think of this story, but I mean, that's all you need. You don't actually need to see anything. There's going to be nothing that you gain by watching this. You should not pay money for this. You should not. It is a waste of your time.
Okay,
I can't go that far.
Okay,
there were some great shots. There were some good moments.
What are the things that you liked? Then let's talk about that.
I liked the opening car chase between the two random gang people, and how that was when they were so close to each other and shooting each other, and then one hits a fire hydrant and explode. I was psyched by that sort of cold open. I was like, okay, we're gonna go, and this movie is not gonna stop. And I thought we were going to be like 3 days earlier, and instead he's shot in the throat right then. This movie surprised me from the get-go. I didn't realize we were going on the journey from jump, because a lot of these movies start at the end and then you go back to find how we got there. And then I just and then I was really interested at times of, so they're really not talking. Like, how are they going to do this? Is this exciting? Is this worth it? And everything sort of dribbled away slowly and then all at once.
Through her leaving the house for me, right? Their relationship being as fragile as it was, that she just, in the words of his on-screen letter at the end, you loved me until you couldn't love me anymore. And I felt that, right? Like I got that experience that she, she was present. She was as present as she could be. And then she couldn't be present anymore. And that's, I see it. And the not talking bit, I felt was used very well up front, especially after he threw away the speech device in the hospital. And I was kind of on the edge of my seat, wondering, as I'm looking particularly at her face, I think she was really good, Catalina Sandino Moreno, at almost talking, and that sort of perilous line of, are you going to let me off the hook and hear your voice? And so I enjoyed that. It was very short-lived, because then she leaves and we're in montage territory for a long time, watching him watch videos. And to his credit, Kinnaman, he's a physical guy. And I know he's an executive producer on this thing, right? Like he's got skin in this movie. My challenge with Kinnaman is he has a surly look from jump. Like he was angry when he wasn't supposed to be angry. He was angry as a loving dad, and I never got anything other than one note.
It's a lot of just staring at his face, sort of grumpy.
Yeah, it really
it's too
is.
much.
It's that's it. It's exhausting. Mm-hmm. So I struggle with that. He looks great. We didn't get a lot of physicality porn, but he does take his shirt off once after the montage. He stops wearing baggy sweatshirts to hide the abs. He looks great. Like, he does the work, Kinnaman, which I'm pretty sure he did for DC stuff when he did Suicide Squad, and so he looks great. Very, very impressive.
You mentioned that we move into montage stuff. Is there anything about this movie that's not a montage?
Yeah, that's a fair.
I mean, it's all
question.
A montage.
Training montage. You're right. It's all a montage. It's an action montage, the death of the child montage. We get the hospital montage, and we get you're right. It could have been Michael Bay, with fewer.
Why
drugs.
does he chase the cars? Why does it happen? How does he chase the cars?
That is an unanswered question. I think we're supposed to fill that in with the flashback later, when we actually see the sequence where the stray gang bullet hits the child and they're all ducking.
Yeah, he's trying to
and he backs
get back
up and
at the guys.
screams
on foot.
And then we can kind of imagine
with cars,
that parental rage
chasing cars
fills him. Yeah, I know. I mean, I was there.
Yeah, but
ladies lift buses off their kids. I saw it in the news.
And then the gang guy shoots him in the throat.
Yeah,
because he's chasing cars.
He hit
because he's angry.
He hit the car with a pipe,
and he survives.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I love how you guys talk about the respect. Well, Tommy, you talked about the respect of, like, he was not superhuman. He trains to be superhuman. He survives a throat shot in isolation.
Oh, that's true.
As the complicating incident of this film thing.
He was already shot in the back, by the way. Let's not forget.
I didn't think about that. He's pretty strong.
Yeah.
You could think that guy would be able to do a pull-up.
Yeah. Right.
I like that he couldn't do 2 pull-ups, and then 2 months went by and he couldn't do 3 pull-ups. I was like, I think I would do better than that.
Well, I mean, he was busy. He actually didn't practice between those 2 times. So
that's true. Right.
I think that this is a movie, and I think this is also a John Woo thing, right? That you can get away with more egregious violations of physics and physical health in the more traditional sort of Chinese action films.
Well, peak John Woo is Face Off, at least in my opinion. I think everybody would have an opinion about this, but I think that really when you look at his filmography, you look at Face Off, and people who criticize Face Off would criticize Face Off because they see Silent Night in Face Off, right? They see schmaltz, like Tommy talked about. They see, when you talk about the superhuman switching of like this thing is again a creative vehicle that they made Face Off with, but he at least leverages the schmaltz and that creative leap to something that is somewhat or bordering on cohesion in Face Off. And I think and that's the thing that brought us back to this. That's why we're here to watch this. But for me, sitting in the theater as an audience member, trying my best not to laugh when everything is happening, literally every scene was a laugh for me. I'm thinking, oh, the criticism of Face Off was right. And
But the action made it worth it.
But the action made it worth it. And now we're seeing we don't have whatever else was there to set a foundation, to set a base, to ground a film like we had in Face Off. Now all we have is the ridiculousness. And that's what this thing is just a montage of ridiculousness.
And I wonder, JJ, if actually the swing that I characterize the no dialogue as the big swing of this movie, if that actually might have fixed the movie, if they'd actually let the characters talk, right? If that may have been the interesting thing.
But I do not want to hear the speech at the end of the movie.
Yeah,
when
no,
they
I'm not
walk
interested
into
in
the den of
that.
the
If that's
Dang
like
King. Like
right. that that's going to be a director's special edition, a Blu-ray special edition. It's the talkie version of this movie. Face Off came out in 97. We were all in our 20s. I wonder if, had we seen this movie when we were in our 20s, we would have a different opinion.
Yeah, I think so, because the problem is also that he has been left behind. This is a return to form as far as like a guns to the wall kind of action film, but he's known for like these balletic strokes. The somewhere over the rainbow slow motion shootout in Face Off, for instance, these kind of seeing violence as beauty and art and almost dancing. Thunder Road, John Wick, all of these movies have done it where they have lifted the bar so high that you can't just sort of do this staircase shootout anymore and be excited by it. This movie is of a time before, unfortunately, and he's just been left behind.
Yeah. And everything else screams they needed to do that staircase sequence well. They needed to have that final confrontation. Like the setup, I think the production design, the set, it looks ready for that level of action. It looks like having that giant vertical canvas. One of the pieces that frustrated me so much is, and it's not like I just want to see gratuitousness for gratuitousness, but kind of I do. Every time he shot someone and flipped them down over the railing, they never showed the finished effect. They never showed the fall. You would hear it. You'd hear bodies banging on railings, but the camera would it felt like they wanted to tilt down. But like John is under the lens with his finger saying, nope, too far, don't tilt down, don't show the whole thing. It felt so, the camera felt so manipulated in a way that constrained the movie vastly beyond what it needed to be. Mm-hmm. Because I think so much about the camera was cool. They did a lot of these long sweeping shots, these moving shots through doors, these POV shots that felt really fluid. You talk about the action as dance. I thought there were a number of sequences where I was looking forward to the next door opening, right? Because they got me there with this giant sort of motion of the camera. And I thought, I'm going to give the movie credit for a number of cool camera moves. None of them really paid off in terms of the punchline of an action sequence. And that was so frustrating.
I think that's fair. I think one of the criticisms we talk about on this show a lot of times, on this podcast a lot of times, is when we have camera angles or camera shots that are done without a POV purpose. And in particular, one thing that I recognize from the motion control stuff, for example, when his name was Godlock. I was going to call him Kinnaman, but Godlock is in the LPPD police department. Sorry. Every time I talk about anything for this movie, it just feels ridiculous. He's sitting alone in a room, and the camera leaves the cop and tracks down a hallway and makes its way into the room that Godlock is in, but that represents nothing as far as a POV or anything that actually happens in the scene. And that stuff drives me nuts because, I mean, last month we did The Killer and we talked about the motion control shots of like having a story purpose, having a character purpose, having all of these things that as an audience member, you felt like you were participating in the story of the way it's there. So much of what we saw in this movie, both from a filmmaking perspective and a story perspective, felt so disconnected from purpose that it led me to believe like that's why I introed the show the way I did. Like I don't even want it to sit beside a movie like The Killer. This makes me feel like The Killer is a masterpiece of cinema. You know, and
Yeah,
and
right.
I don't know that I want to say that. I love that movie a lot, but this, I'm like backing this up with this. It's just so unbalanced, and that stuff felt like the kind of novelty that I just really don't like. It's the fact of let's do something because we can, as opposed to for a reason.
I think you're absolutely right, and that is a perfect example of the ghost POV that was nonsense because we finally get the POV later. The POV that they give us when we track into the office with Kinnaman is a POV that is fulfilled after Kinnaman leaves the office because we get the same shot with the detective coming into his own office and seeing Kinnaman now in the elevator. And so it is, I think for me, that highlights the sort of unrequited incompetence of editing, right? There were sequences in this movie that were forehead slappingly bad. The fact that they give us a montage of him gearing up and the diligence of clipping the shotgun to this is the first time he's in full hero mode. And we get the whole thing where he takes his leather jacket and he puts it on and he stretches his shoulders and he's got his big condor wings arms and he's just he's geared up. He's checked all the chambers and the guns all loaded. And the next shot, he's taken all of it off and he's writing a letter to his wife.
Yes.
And the shot after that, he's geared up again, walking into his son's room to grab the music box. That was like a high point of my peak frustration. Like this is such an example of it's snatching defeat from the jaws of mediocrity. It's like you didn't even have a win, but you lost even that. It's an own goal.
Yes. Agreed. I laughed out loud.
I don't know.
I laughed out loud. I wasn't frustrated. I thought it was ridiculous. I thought it was a joke.
Yeah.
This is Showgirls level bad. And when I say that, this is fully watching interviews with Elizabeth Hurley today, retconning her experience with Showgirls, saying she never knew it was what it was when she made the movie. And now she understands how it was a career killer for her. This movie is that level of bad when you see exactly the sequence you're talking about, Pete. And it's just like, WTF.
Yeah.
Would you do that in a movie? There's no reason.
Well, this is the thing that boggles me, though, is that like I get the complexities of making modern cinema. I get it. I totally do. And did anybody watch that sequence before they put it on the final reel?
Yeah.
You could edit the letter writing in anywhere else. It does not have to be with the gearing up ever. Why? It's a joke.
You know, it could be immediately before the gearing up, which is where letter writing belongs. You write letters before you gear up. I think everybody knows that.
Right.
Tom, you are sitting really silent, and you're kind of chewing on your fists a little bit, and it makes me worry about you. It makes me worry that JJ and I have gone to a place that you're...
I apologize.
No, I am not as throw the entire movie into the trash as JJ is, because I also found some elegance in some of the... like the cut when he's getting out of his car, looking at his front yard, get it out of his car. And then I didn't see that shot coming of he gets out and it's sunny and he's seeing his son. I thought that was kind of elegant. I like that when he laid down in bed and then the camera pans over and his boy is there. Some of that stuff felt kind of either practical or well done, which I kind of liked. I like that kind of elegance because that reminds me of a dance that this movie could have been. If you're going to go visual with no dialogue, make it count. And those were examples where I was like, oh, cool. This is neat. I've never seen John do stuff or Mr. Wu do stuff like that. But I have seen him do a lot of some of the other things.
Birds. I have to bring up the birds. It's a staple.
Yep.
What we have here
usually it's
is
doves.
Usually it's doves. I think they're pigeons that fly away from the thing, and then we settle on what I classified in my notes as a Pixar parrot.
When he shows it, because that's his spirit coming back to his body.
Why does it look like that?
Why did it look like that? Because birds are hard to train. Boy, oh boy.
Yeah.
They're chirping all around the place. Yikes.
Were you impacted by did that impact you?
I laughed
okay.
because I was like, okay, we got a bird.
Yeah. we got a bird. The bird looked at me. Like the bird stopped and with intention looked at me in my face. And I said, you are a computer bird. Why are you
computer
here?
bird that broke the fourth wall. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Right. Didn't you hear it? Didn't you hear it say, cheap, get a refund? It was a warning. It was a warning from the end of the movie. No, because there's two things that we were waiting for. Three things. Slow motion, two guns firing at once, and birds.
Many times.
And weird. Well, did we? I thought we got it once with the double guns, and it wasn't even our main character.
It was, but it was over his back, right? So usually in a John Woo movie, you see it. You know, you're seeing the guns pointed at you, or you're witnessing the fury of the. We didn't get it that
under
way,
the guns.
right? We were behind.
We got it with the detective.
Right. The detective from behind over his shoulder, looking at what he was firing at. Which it's the action, but it's not the same. It doesn't have the same effect, in my opinion.
Right.
It felt aged. It felt like elderly. Sluggish and incomplete. Yeah. And I don't move that fast anymore. And so when I go to movies like John Woo movies, I want people to demonstrate crap I can't do. And I could do what they did. I could get shot and sit down. There's a lot of that.
There's a lot of that.
That is I think the climactic battle sequence is problematic. I struggled, obviously, after we struggled with the stair sequence. After the stair sequence, since you guys broke the ice on the detective who really was purposeless for most of the movie and suddenly is an action hero. Like, by the time he gets to the top of the stairs, he's doing sliding on his knees and flipping around and dual wielding. And it was Super Cop. We got Super Cop all of a sudden. Where the hell was he for the rest of the movie? I felt like, just in terms of JJ, to your point about this being sort of a montage music video, this is a great example of that, where we have this character that fills a hole for just a specific part of the film and nothing else. We don't really need him anywhere else. When I actually think there could have been a narrative in here that actually completes the investigation, right? Mm-hmm. That completes so the cop is not quite so behind. And we don't have to believe that he was able to catch up with one evening investigation sitting in his car staring at notes.
Right, and make him a character that's worth redeeming. He was just not enough of a character. Everything is just hinted at. And especially with them both falling down at the end. There's a lot of Wooisms and a lot of Thunder Roadisms in that whole last sequence. The both guys nodding at each other, the honor among thieves, the honor among vigilantes, that's very big in there. Them both, the crazy heroin lady shooting over and over and over, and both people taking their turns, jumping into fire. That is a very John Woo move, a move that he's been doing since actually Wind Talkers. Wind Talkers was filled, another movie that I was a part of, is filled with people, because it's honor, are so mad at what's going on, they will jump up into the line of fire just to spray bullets, and then they all die. A lot of what he does is very honor and this sort of weird male heroic honor among thieves kind of basis. The other thing where there was a real road smash, not a phrase, a real car crash between the two styles is the bad guys and heroin ladies' boudoir, with all of the crazy balls hanging and all of the projections on the walls. That is 100% Thunder Road. That's every single bad guy's lair in all of the John Wick movies. But then the weird, awkward waltz that they're doing, where they just had to keep cutting back because he obviously didn't film more coverage there, that's very John Woo. In this weird, this is what someone who's never met a criminal thinks a criminal might be doing. You can see that in the face-off in Nicolas Cage's bad guy layer, which is just insane and doesn't make any sense, and it's all just glass and things waiting to be blown
That's
up.
where I connected it. And honestly, they were dancing for 90 minutes waiting for the fight to get to them.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question
And
about...
I think it was that 9 Inch Nails song. That 9 Inch Nails song is not that long.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not even the extended version.
Not even.
About heroin lady, heroin girl, crazy shooter. So
Can we just do a little, just before you say that, JJ, this is really important. Tom, I would like you to improv the answer to this question before you hear JJ ask it.
Oh, what was she eating that she poured all over him in the parking lot? Apparently it was Exos. Like, what was Slimer filled with?
ectoplasm.
Ectoplasm. She was just eating ectoplasm. Is that it?
Good.
Did I get
perfect.
it right?
JJ?
No. So she laughing.
This is a good game. We're going to do this again.
Okay, so she laughing, crazy, shooting, all these things. Godlock gets the drop on her with a gun. And she looks at him with a
crying
face,
sort of,
and he
like they knew each other.
Stops, and then she shoots him.
Yeah.
But what
I specifically, when I brought up the idea of how weird the pacing was, that's the scene that I have in my head of like, you're going to slam the brakes on everything right now for this weirdness, which is just some vague, look how far I've gone. I can't shoot a woman.
I know.
What have I become?
Okay, so that you answer, there's the answer to my question, not ectoplasm. What could possibly be the thoughts in either character's head for that moment? Are we having possum and pity, or are we having regret?
Possum and pity.
I mean, but that it makes
so
no
weird
sense.
No.
Is it the same thing? His reaction, is that the same reaction that he was having when he saw the Miracle of Death kid's head in the ball sequence a little bit later? Sure. I think they're motivated by the same thing, right? Showing the regret of taking so much life, and is this a justified thing? And who am I? What is my identity now? I'm so lost in the world of vengeance, and I think they were two separate triggers that led to ultimately to him taking life. Right? Like, ultimately, he's like, nope, I guess I'm cool. And then he killed the bull.
You can't have it both ways. And the movie sort of vaguely tries to.
And I, like I said about talking about the killer and how I don't even want to compare this to the killer, I even blanch at using the word revenge for this movie, because it is not, I mean, that's the theme. I guess that's the idea, but this is not, I mean, there's nothing realistic. And I shouldn't even say realistic. There's nothing real about this. It's a montage of obligation that is close.
You mean nothing like genuine?
There's nothing genuine. I mean, this,
right.
Like to say it's revenge, like, yes, that's, you can put it on the revenge shelf, but if you compare it to any other revenge film, it is not, there's no train, there's no sequence of events here that is anything other than a montage of what a child would think revenge should look like. I think, Pete, your question of whether we would have thought differently about this movie in our 20s is appropriate, but I think it's more for, first time you ever see a gun movie, if you're going to appreciate that. There's nothing about this that it shouldn't be compared to other revenge movies. I said on last month on this podcast that I love revenge movies. That's part of the reason why I wanted to see this. And this is not that.
But what's so interesting about that, JJ, right? The thing that is so fascinating about this is that we love John Wick, and that entire thing started over the death of a dog. This one, he lost his own child, and we're saying that's not authentic enough? What is it about this movie? Like, I agree with you. I feel like that's an almost rhetorical question, because so much of what's lost in this movie is tonal, but you can't say that the idea of avenging your son is not an authentic kickoff to a revenge movie.
I agree with you.
And it's something that John Woo has already done. We already brought up Face Off. You remember Nicolas Cage kills his son while trying to kill him. And just as a real sidebar, real quick, when we're bringing up The Killer and how much we love The Killer, we're talking about David Fincher's The Killer, not John Woo's The Killer.
Right.
John Woo made a movie called The Killer, no relation to David Fincher's, before he made Hard Boiled. Hard Boiled and The Killer are like two of his most iconic. I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that we weren't talking about That John Woo.
Very
Yes.
good point.
Okay.
That's right.
I-
Yeah, and he actually talked about remaking that as right in 2015. I think he was
over and
talking about.
over and over.
Over and over,
It's been in development every year for like a decade.
Yes, and
Anyway,
Pete,
JJ,
your
sorry.
point about that being an authentic reason. Yes, that there's no question that is an authentic reason. And I think there's a little bit more to the John Wick story than just the dog, but the dog is the recurring sort of callback of what starts the revenge.
Inciting.
Yes, the thing, but this nothing. The path that this character takes, it doesn't work. It's just a joke. It's just a music video montage of what you'd see a mumble rapper make in a revenge idea. I'm surprised it didn't have directed by John Woo, with a song at the end, or maybe the police scanner that became the exposition dump through all of the chaos parts.
Yeah, right.
I just
Right. That's right.
I don't know. Again, I'm very angry about it, and I can't hold that back.
I couldn't stop laughing at the calendar.
At the what?
The calendar.
The calendar.
When he first writes "kill them all," and I was like, "Oh boy!" I was hoping that like he had a calendar where he'd flip to it and it already said "kill them all," but then there was like stuff figured out clearly in post of like, we don't know what's happening with the shootout, so that it has "killed them all," and then next to it says "start a gang war?" question mark, because he shows up to a gang war already in progress. Start a gang war? Question mark. It's just such a funny use of calendar.
And what basic cable level straight to video film has start a gang war? Question mark. And I mean, this is why I'm embarrassed to even be talking about this movie. That it's hilarious.
I acknowledge that.
And that action scene was not well done.
No.
He was really excited. I think maybe Mr. Wu hadn't seen drifting before because he spends a lot of time on drifting, and to do that whole sequence just going around and around, because that was the one thing he practiced, shooting people at random and then casting his own daughter and having her die as a cop. I don't know, eagle eye watchers will see that was Angelus Wu in the movie. That was his daughter who plays the police officer. She doesn't get a line, but nobody gets a line, so it's okay. Yeah.
The I do one of the tropes I think of the Thunder Road things. It's impossible to kill characters, right? They just can take a ton of damage. But I think this is interesting. Apropos of the question I asked just a minute ago, like the things that these movies when they're great can get away with, and this movie doesn't. The day before on the calendar, he starts a gang war, but it's because he goes to this house and he fights with that guy. And then he brings the guy back to his garage and hands him a knife, practically. That was ridiculous. And then they get in a fight and he is stabbed in his leg and never, the next day, he spent the last 6 months healing. And the next day he goes and kills them all. And I feel like this movie, because I'm so not in the bag for this movie, that every one of those little infractions I don't buy. When the impossible to kill dual wielding detective stands up after getting shot twice in the chest with no vest, I don't buy it. And so all of those things, like they were like paper cuts from Jump that led to the dissolution of the movie by the end. I could not stand up fast enough when the credits rolled. I couldn't stand up fast enough.
Agreed. I wanted to leave.
I took a shot every time he wound up that little music toy. That was it's too much. It was just so schmaltzy.
What did you drink when he wound it up after it was broken into pieces on his dashboard? That was cool, I thought.
That was interesting because it was clearly broken and it still kind of worked. It was interesting that in the Christmas tree bauble, it flashed forward to his son graduating from high school, which never happened, but then back to him as a child.
Yes.
If you were going to continue that, then show a wedding. This is what could have been. But they obviously just had this one shot that they did. That's this film.
It's a joke. It's ridiculous.
Some of Mr. Wu's work has been really, really helped by the editing process, seeing early cuts and then later ones. And it's like, wow, they found the movie of a director who is admittedly visuals over everything else. And no sense of what's melodrama, what's schmaltzy. And this was not helped at all. If anything, it was hurt more by it.
How did Godlock, without the ability to speak, get the gangster that he held prisoner able to answer all those questions?
Well, the gangster's really good at standardized testing. And so all he
Essays,
needed was the
standardized
bullet
essay
prompts.
testing.
Essays, yeah. And so he was able to just read, yeah, I've done all those things. And write
Fabulous
these essays.
penmanship.
Fabulous. The core conceit of the movie is the swing of not being able to speak. And I don't have my speech pathologist wife here to check this, but believe me, I'm going to, because I think the damage that was done to his throat to render him unable to make sound, right, destroying his vocal folds, would render him unable to make any sound. And there is a sequence when, after the incident, when he's hugging his wife and he's trying to, and he sees the newspaper that reminds him that he lost his son, and he starts wailing. He makes sound. The only thing left for him to do is move his lips and tongue to make words at that point. But we're supposed to believe that he can't do that. And I really, if you're gonna, like, this is, I don't know if it was performative or what, but it felt to me like effectively the vocal equivalent of Doves. It was just like over dramatized sound.
Dig, if you will, the picture.
That's what I got out of it.
Exactly.
Dig, if you will, the picture. Okay, so it was great. And we're going to come right back and we're going to rate it, because what else do we possibly have to talk about? Join our community of fellow movie lovers on the True Story FF Discord server. You know what? You could come talk about this movie with us on there. You'll get one-word answers, I think, from those of us who have seen it, but we'll be there.
No, that's going to be my one-word answer.
You can join for free at thenextreel.com/Discord. If you like what we're doing here, help us out. 'Tis the season, after all. Become a supporting member at thenextreel.com/membership to learn more about benefits, members-only Discord channels, and joining us for the live stream as we record them. You can head over there. It's super easy, and, it's pretty cheap. All right, everybody. Letterboxd. Wow. So we got it. We got to do something. We got to figure out where we're going to put it in our letterbox, where we're going to steal stars from some other movie in order to give it to this movie. And JJ, do you want to get it out of the way? Is this where I think it's going to land?
Well,
oh my God, JJ.
I was thinking during the movie, I'm like, I think I gave Killers of the Flower Moon a 1, right? Because of how angry I was at that, politically speaking. So I was like, how can I rate this movie? And that's why I so much was talking about, like, I don't think I should rate it. I would give it a 0 stars because I just don't think it should exist. I don't think there's a reason for it to exist.
Jesus.
I don't think, seriously. And it doesn't allow us to give 0 stars. So that's the thing. I guess it's a 0.5, but like,
you can just log the movie, right? Like, Letterboxd. It just means I saw it. So I'm going to give you 0 stars and a heart, and that'll be fun. You'll love it,
right? That's the thing. Like, yes. I did it. I was there, but really, like, for me to even compare, like, I want people to know that while I give Killers of the Flower Moon a 1 star, it is phenomenally better than this. And so I'm just trying.
It made you angry too.
And it made me angry too. But like, to even put it in the same podcast is like totally unfair, because that's a movie and that has a reason to exist. This is a joke and there's not really a reason for it to exist. So, that's why I'm just like, oh, hey, can I abstain? I'm going to vote present and, yes. But I just, I'm sorry.
Okay.
And Tom, if you hadn't, had an NDA, I'd be asking you lots of more intimate questions about your life with this production company. But, whatever. That was a joke. We're years past that, but still.
Yeah.
Well, I think that is a great segue, Tom, to the emotional weight that you must carry toward your affinity for Mr. Wu. You've been calling him Mr. Wu for the last hour.
I know, it's just out of because he always asked me to call him John and I never did. I
ain't gonna start now.
Some of the years working there at that company were wonderful, and I'm still friends with almost everybody that works there. And I was really hoping that this could be so much more, and instead maybe it's sort of at best a warm up of getting back into the Hollywood system, because I'd like to see more from him, but not more like this. But it did have a few successful sequences, not whole sequences, but parts of sequences. So I cannot give it a 0. I will give it a 1.5 and a not heart, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and split the difference. I'm gonna hang out there at a 1 star, no heart. And I thought for a bit as I was driving home that I might be able to land on 2 stars, but it didn't live up to any of the John Woo expectation that I had carrying into it. It didn't live up to any of the American movies. It didn't live up to Broken Arrow, for crying out loud. Like, I liked Broken Arrow more than this movie. But what I want John Woo here making Hollywood movies. Like, I want classic John Woo exploring something brand new. Like, let's try and do something we've never seen before. And we got a movie-shaped movie out of this one, but it just doesn't land very well. So thank you, gents, for hanging out at the bottom of the barrel.
You guys,
we did it.
You guys owe me $2. I want my $2.
What are we doing? What are we doing next month? It's very exciting. It's actually, because this is December, and the movie that we're doing next month actually comes out in December, but we're not going to watch it when it comes out. JJ, tell us what
we're going to go see Ferrari, and we're very excited about it for lots of different reasons. It looks like a very interesting take on a very interesting history, and we have some history with the director of photography, Eric Messerschmidt, and we've spoken to him about a couple different movies that we talked about in the past month. The Killer that we aforementioned on the show here, and then Pete, you and Andy talked to him on movies we like, right?
We did. We talked to him for I believe it's the December episode of movies we like. So Eric Messerschmidt came and talked to us about Chinatown, which will be released later this month. But yeah, so we are going to do Ferrari. We are going to be doing that in the first couple of weeks of January, and so that will be our January movie. But I hope you can get out and see it. It is, interestingly, it is a Michael Mann movie, and it is an independent movie. He didn't get any studio backing for it, so this is definitely a labor of love and passion. And as a Ferrari head myself, I can't wait to see it. So that's what we got. It's very exciting. It's only upside from here is really what
I'm excited.
Don't forget to join our online community with fellow movie lovers. Again, thenextreel.com/Discord. If you're not already a member, thenextreel.com/membership. Thank you all, everybody, for hanging out with us, talking about this movie. We appreciate your downloads. We appreciate your time and your attention. Until next month, meeting adjourned.